Now, trauma centres are usually overwhelmed this time of year. Last year, hospitals were dealing with a high number of COVID-related matters. What is the situation like this year? Well, eNCA senior reporter Barry Bateman is following the story for us, and he joins us now. Barry, you know, New Year's Eve is traditionally a busy period for the emergency services, but the lockdown did quieten things down a bit last year. Can we expect the same this year?
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, that's the hope from the emergency services that I've spoken to. You're quite right. There's a big debate going on at the moment about whether or not that curfew from midnight to 4 should be reviewed and removed entirely. Well, that would allow people to be out there from, like we did in the old days, I suppose, all the way through the night into the next day and up to the early hours of the morning. But unfortunately, what we do see when this happens is that people do continue to imbibe until those early hours and quite often get into a motor car and drive somewhere, which has often deadly consequences. So there is the hope from the emergency services that there will be a bit of a quieter year like it was last year. I mean, even the roads were quieter last year. There was fewer people out there going on holiday, all the result of the lockdown. But we've seen we're down to level 1. There's just that one little curfew in place. Now, I was speaking to ER24 earlier today on what they expect to happen. Take a listen.
Looking at the past and what's been happening there, we have seen it's been very busy, a lot of alcohol-related incidents, illicit substances, and a lot of trauma-related incidents. Now, with the pandemic, I think a lot of people are still very wary about going out, about going to the party venues and things like that. But on the other hand, with people not being able to have gone out over the past almost 2 years, that this may be a bit of a release. So we are gearing up that it might be a busy festive or busy New Year's, especially being on the weekend as well. ER24 and all the other emergency services out there have obviously put extra resources on the road, especially during this time.
No, it most certainly has been a very busy festive season. But what is the big plea from emergency services to take a bit of that weight off their shoulders?
Lay off the alcohol. Just take it a little bit easy. Be responsible. That is the big plea. It is one of the biggest contributing factors to the trauma incidents of the people who end up in a trauma unit. So the plea is to just take it easy. If you are going to go out there and you're going to be drinking, don't go get in a vehicle and don't go drive. The other big issue that I was speaking to the guys about is fights. Quite often there are these fights at places where there are people consuming alcohol, big punch-ups, sadly sometimes stabbings and shootings. And this all goes back to that one particular aspect, and that is the consumption of alcohol. Now, speaking to other paramedics, they were saying that they're going to be deploying to hotspot areas, as they refer to them. I want to know, well, what type of area is that? Is it a particular club or a location? They're talking about anywhere where there's a large number of people who gather. Let's take a look at some of our beach spots. I know Margate, for one, is one of the spots where people would gather on a New Year's Eve. This is one of the areas where there would be a saturation of emergency services to pick up those incidents because there's a high number of alcohol, or a high volume of alcohol rather, being consumed. Now, I've spoken to Netcare 911 as well, and I asked about that aspect of drinking too much.
The lower consumption of alcohol, that always ends up being a sore point at the end of any year. If you look at the motor vehicle collisions, stabbing, shootings, and all of those end up relating back to alcohol. So I would like to see a drop in that. The normal, if I can say, the usual medical cases will still be around. So we've got normal operational plans for that. That will continue as normal. We've highlighted some of the hotspots, if that's what I can call it. We've managed to accrue additional resources. We are going to put resources in those particular hotspots and locations that we have identified as, like I said, more volatile, if I could put it that way.
Now, Barry, we all know that prevention is better than cure. It's how the saying goes. Will we be seeing, though, any increased presence from law enforcement authorities this time around?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was with the JMPD's Wayne Minnar yesterday, and he was giving me the breakdown of what they intend doing this weekend. There'll be various focus areas. The one aspect is speeding. We've got the big highways in Gauteng, and many people going to excessive speeds there, so they'll be monitoring that. But of course, the roadblock aspect, and this is where they pick up what Minnar described to me as their biggest problem, and this is drinking and driving. So just like the paramedics were telling us there, their biggest concern being alcohol, how it results in all these other trauma incidents. the JMPD and no doubt the Tshwane Metro Police, Ekurhuleni as well, all our authorities in Gauteng and around the country will be focusing on ensuring that those people who do take a chance and get behind the wheel while intoxicated will be caught.